Summer park and a hot afternoon. At this hour there are few people. The townspeople prefer to relax by the water. Many are at work. Patrick, a young boy, was also working hard, washing paths, trimming bushes, and emptying full trash cans. He was a thrifty guy, so he put tin cans and bottles separately and then gave them to collection points. An extra penny wouldn't hurt. Sweat covered my eyes. My t-shirt stuck to my body. A very pretty, well-groomed but sad and crying girl was walking slowly down the shady alley. She limped a little on one leg and wiped her tears with a handkerchief. On a bench nearby sat two young drunken men. They were fashionably dressed, haircuts with a crest, twirled in their hands phone, and seeing the crying girl began to comment loudly. "Come on, take a picture. She looks fine. Legs from the ears, one really shorter than the other, limping poor thing, but it's a trifle. But the skirt is short and the form is top class. We can have some fun. Hey son, turn your back to us and your face to the forest." The girl looked back frightened. The young men roared like horses. She went faster, but the rude men got up and immediately caught up with her, encircling her from both sides. One was filming, the other was shouting and insulting. "Where are you going, you limping wonder? You can't escape your fate. You're crying because you have no one to relax with, but we'll help you. So how much will you give John for?" The girl panicked and tried to get out of his clutches and screamed, "What do you want? Get away from me! Somebody help me!" But the guys only got excited and they mocked the victim. "Don't break, wave to the camera, it'll make a great video. Stop crying. Smile," I said. Patrick couldn't take it anymore. He threw the broom and called out to the villains, "Hey, why are you picking on the girl? Don't you have anything else to do? Get away from her or you'll be in trouble." The guys immediately turned their attention to the janitor and one of them started picking on him. "Oh, limp leg. Look at what kind of protector you've got. I guess you just came out of the dump. Get out of here while your arms and legs are still intact and let us have fun." They didn't even think of letting the girl go, on the contrary. They started to mock her, tried to pull up her skirt and kept filming her. Patrick ran up and jumped on them and shouted to the girl, "Run away!" There was a scuffle, 2-on-1, but Patrick grew up on the street. He was not used to fights. He beat them both up and crushed their phones so they couldn't post the video anywhere. Even though he took a pretty good beating himself, he got his lip smashed and his eye swollen shut, but his assailants ran away, cursing. The girl was hiding behind an ice cream stand, and when the scoundrels ran away, she rushed to help her savior. She helped him up, took napkins out of her purse, fussed around him and wailed, "Thank you so much. You saved me. I was so scared. I don't know what would have happened if it hadn't been for you. You need some medicine for your wounds. Let me run to the drugstore. I'll be right back." The guy hesitated. He liked the girl very much, and he was very shy. "No need to go to the pharmacy. On me, like on a dog. Everything heals quickly. Listen, and let's be on you. I really do not like all these formalities. My name's Patrick. I work here part-time, cleaning." The girl introduced herself as Wendy. She was very pleased to talk to the guy. Patrick chuckled. He wanted the girl to like him. "I don't like it when someone hurts such beautiful girls. Why are you so sad? Did someone hurt you? Just tell me. I'll take care of it." Wendy decided to thank the guy, bought coffee and ice cream, sighed, sat down on the bench and began to tell. "It's not that simple. My dad's a banker, and my mom died a long time ago. He's raising me alone. He doesn't allow me to be friends with ordinary guys and girls because it's against my status. So he found me a fiancé from his circle, Zach. His dad's a prosecutor, so he's a cocky guy who knows that whatever he does, he'll get away with it. We dated for a while, and his parents and my dad were rubbing their hands together thinking we'd get married. My dad can't hear me. I've told him 100 times I don't like this Zach guy, that he's acting out. It's not going to work out. All the groom did was go clubbing. He could pick up another girl in front of me. It was like he was doing it on purpose to piss me off. When I began to take offense and tell him everything, he humiliated me in front of my friends saying, "You know your place." And then he gave me bouquets and acted as if nothing had happened. Today we agreed to go on a picnic, but I was late for practice. I'm studying to be a lawyer. I was an hour late. I arrived at the place, and Zach was already drinking and kissing Ellie, my girlfriend. So I couldn't take it. We had a huge fight, and I left. That's why I cried. "Do you have a girlfriend? Where do you live? Tell me about yourself." Patrick shrunk. There was nothing to be proud of. But he didn't lie. I'm an orphanage kid. I don't remember my mom very well. She was very sick and died when I was 5 years old. So they put me in the orphanage. I quickly realized that if you don't know how to stand up for yourself, you will always be bullied. It's wolf law there. I learned to fight. I got beat up a lot. No one cares about orphans. It's useless to complain to the educators. They'll give you a good beating, so you don't tell on them. I suffered there for a long time, and then I couldn't stand it and ran away when I turned 16. I hung around on the streets for a couple months, but it was even worse. I almost starved to death, my stomach cramped all the time. You can't ask for alms either, all the places are shared. You'd get your ass kicked. And they don't give much if you're young and your hands and feet are in place and they shame you. So I went to my aunt, a third cousin, out of despair. She sometimes visited me in the orphanage, but she couldn't take me away, though she was lonely, ill, and had a hard life herself. But when she saw me on the doorstep, thin and shabby, she took pity and took me in. So I stayed with Aunt Margaret. We lived hard. Her penny pension was not enough for medicine, and I don't even want to talk about the rest. I didn't want to sit on her neck as a freeloader. I was ashamed, so I did everything I could. I got a job at a construction site as a handyman, without documents. They pay a little, but without cheating. I got a job as a janitor, on weekends, also for a penny. I understand. In your eyes, I'm nothing, almost a bum. Aunt Tanya asked me to go back to the orphanage to get my papers, but I didn't want to go there. And 6 months ago, my aunt died. She was overcome by her illnesses. I was with her till the last, taking care of her. She was the only person close to me on this earth. I miss her very much. Now I live in her room in the dormitory. I know that I have to restore the documents, but I can't do it yet. I'm afraid that this tiny room will be taken away. We're very distant relatives, the seventh water on the vine. You probably won't want to talk to me now, will you? Who are you and who am I? Wendy said, You shouldn't think that. I'm so sick of these insolent majors hanging around me. I know they only want my father's money and I'm just an appendage to them. And I have this stupid limp that makes me so self-conscious. You're different, kind and open. You defended a complete stranger's honor so easily, it's worthy of respect. And the fact that you live modestly is not your fault. So I won't turn my nose up at you, don't worry. Let's be friends. Patrick was very happy, and from that day on, he and Wendy began to see each other often. At first they just walked in the park, talked for a long time about everything in the world and fed crumbs to the pigeons. It turned out that despite the fact that they were at first glance quite different, he was almost a beggar, and she was a banker's daughter, different upbringing and financial situation. Yet they had similar interests and views on life. Both liked peace and quiet. Loud parties were definitely not for them. Wendy talked about her favorite writers, gave the guy to read their truthful and life stories. Patrick taught the girl to fight back against scoundrels, showed a couple of ingenious techniques, and one day he decided to invite his girlfriend to his home. Everything came out somehow by itself. They were walking in the park when they were covered with a downpour of hail. Patrick's house was just a short walk away, so he said, Let's run back to my place. We'll wait out the weather. Then I'll walk you home or call a cab. Wendy went there with apprehension, as in her mind a dormitory was a horrible place where only alcoholics and cockroaches and bedbugs lived. But she was pleasantly surprised when she saw Patrick's modest but very clean room. The guy liked order in everything, cleaned on time, made cosmetic repairs after the death of his aunt, refreshed the wallpaper. And the neighbors in the common kitchen were absolutely normal people, though simple workers. The young people were immediately invited to eat cabbage pie, and everyone chatted nicely. It was like they'd known each other for ages. It was so striking to Wendy. In high society, such a thing was out of the question. There was envy, hypocrisy, and duplicity everywhere. Patrick suggested that she change into a dry shirt, for her blouse was soaked to the skin. Anyway, Wendy didn't realize how it all happened. Their lips met and Patrick gently embraced her. Now they were not just friends, but bride and groom. Of course, they both realized Wendy's father would never approve or accept their affair, and there would most likely be a huge scandal. But they tried not to think about it now. They just loved each other sincerely. Patrick's neighbors were also shocked to find out who his fiancée was. Uncle Peter shook his head. Oh boy, you've set the bar high. Do you realize how much luxury Wendy is used to? Do you think you can provide her with that standard of living? Or do you think she'll last long in a dormitory on potatoes and macaroni? Maybe you could find a simpler bride. The guy was getting hot. I don't want another one. I love Wendy. I'll either be with her or I won't be with anybody. And she's not a snooty girl, and she'd eat my fried potatoes with pleasure. She's different, the best. You can't tell your heart who to love and who not to love. 3 months passed, and suddenly something happened that no one expected. Wendy got pregnant. She came to the date all excited, showed the test with 2 stripes, and was horrified. God, Patrick, what's going to happen now? Dad's going to kill me for sure. I still have a year to study, and now what? I'm so scared. I think I even have a fever from stress. I'm shaking all over. How can we do this? I'm taking pills. Did I forget to take them? It's too early to think about children. We'd better figure it out. Patrick began to calm the bride, hugged her. You're silly. It's such a blessing. Soon another human being will be born. Ours, yours, and mine. I understand. You are afraid of the anger of his father, and I am not a promising groom. That's true, and I realize that. But I promise you, things will change soon. First, I will go to your father and ask for your hand in marriage. That's the manly thing to do. Secondly, I'm going to make up for all my mistakes. I'm going to go to the orphanage, get my papers, and get them reinstated. I don't want my kid to have a father who's homeless, and when I have the documents, I'll ask the foreman at the construction site to get me an official job, and then I'll get a raise. I'm already laying bricks myself as well as professionals, and tiles too. I'm serious, and I won't leave you. Don't worry. Wendy clung to Patrick. In his arms was so calm and good, and the girl decided, be what it will be. Daddy is strict, but he still loves her. He will forgive her in time. She listened to herself, to her feelings. It was so strange to realize that inside her there was already a tiny human being. It was so exciting and frightening at the same time. Patrick was determined. The next day after work he went into an old chiffonier and took out a small roll of money. The guy saved long and painstakingly, saving every penny. He had a dream before he met Wendy, to go to the sea. Since childhood he had been swooning when he watched movies about the sea. He was so attracted to travel. But that's all changed now. Now that money would be used for something else. Patrick went to a pawn shop and spent a long time choosing a gold ring. It was stunning. It was custom made. The appraiser took Patrick's head for a long time. All the price was piling up. The guy gave everything to the penny, but finally bought the cherished ring. Well, and let until the next paycheck will have to eat 1 oatmeal and save on everything. It didn't matter. He didn't just want to give it to his fiancée. No, he was going to go to the bank to Wendy's father and ask for her hand in marriage. There was no shame in showing up with a ring like that. The guy put the ring in the box, took the check from the pawn shop, got dressed, and went to the bank. He openly told the guard, "Good afternoon. Let me in to see Mike. I'm his future son-in-law. I have some important business to attend to." The guard laughed until tears, scrutinizing the guy in a plain cotton shirt and simple jeans. His heavy hands and a peculiar tan from his t-shirt told at once that he was a simple laborer. The guard replied, "Listen, boy, you should go away. He's my son-in-law, too. I will never believe that our master chose such a simpleton for a son-in-law, or I'll kick your ass to speed things up." Igor took offense, but he didn't back down. "I'm not joking. I'm Wendy's fiancé. Let me through, please. I need to talk to the principal, and I'm not moving from this place until I get what I want." The guard reluctantly radioed in. "Mike, your future son-in-law is here to see you. Hilarious. Claims he's your daughter's fiancé. Do you want me to let him in, or do you want me to kick him out?" Personally, I would choose the second option. The director coughed and replied, "Bring him to me, even curious to look at this clown. I haven't had this much fun in a long time." Patrick got cold feet, because now he would have to confess his feelings for Wendy, and more importantly, that she was pregnant. He imagined the banker's reaction and prepared to fight back, if anything. The banker condescended to look at the visitor, an ordinary guy, like hundreds on the streets. A little poor, but neat. He was the first to speak. "What kind of a circus are you running here, kid? How do you know my daughter?" and I don't think you've crossed paths with her." Patrick swallowed convulsively, took out a box from behind his back, opened it, and said solemnly, "My name is Patrick. I'm very fond of your daughter, Wendy. We're dating, and I'm asking you for her hand in marriage. I want to marry her properly, and Wendy's pregnant with my baby, and you're about to become a grandfather." Ugh, did I just say that? The principal jumped up and down in his chair and yelled, "What are you talking about, you little puppy? Who are you, you beggar, and who is my daughter? Do you expect me to believe that she willingly decided to ruin her life with such a loser? You're lying. I don't believe you. You probably stole a ring somewhere." Patrick got even more upset and shouted, "Why do you measure everyone by money? Wendy and I love each other, for real. And this ring was just bought at a pawn shop an hour ago. Here, look, there's a receipt." The principal took the box in his hands and suddenly froze like a statue. He twirled the ring this way and that and whispered, "God, it can't be. This is it. It's been so many years." And then the banker said in a hoarse voice, "Give me the address of this pawn shop, quickly, and our conversation about my daughter's marriage will be postponed for later. I don't have time for that. Just leave the ring. I really need to solve a mystery connected with it." Patrick was glad because he thought it was a good sign. If the future father-in-law took the ring, it meant that not all was lost. Mike scrutinized the ring very carefully, and his whole life flashed before his eyes. It so happened that he had married not out of great love, but rather on the persuasion of his parents, a decent girl from a wealthy family, Louise. She was attractive, educated, liked the man, but no more. Louise and the hostess turned out to be excellent. The house is always cozy and clean. But Mike himself did not appreciate what he had, often nagged his wife, demanded that she left her favorite work in the company, and all her time devoted only to him. In the family often broke out quarrels. When the wife became pregnant, Mike was waiting for a boy, was just obsessed with it. And when the daughter was born and even weaker with leg problems, he, instead of supporting Louise, began to blame her for everything. "Why are you such a poor woman? Even a healthy child could not give birth. And I wanted a son so badly. And you," Louise cried, took offense, and they became even more distant from each other. Then he really withdrew, loved his daughter, treated her, and from a young age taught her everything he knew. But such was his hard and prickly character that Mike, past the will, oppressed his loved ones. He did not know how to sushi-pusy divorce. That's why his daughter was more attracted to her mother, who did not swear and did not teach life, but just loved. And that made Mike angry too. He wanted so much that Wendy was like him. But no, the daughter was a copy of his wife, as kind, responsive, soft. That unfortunate day, Louise went on company business, not far away, in a neighboring town, in her car. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. The woman confidently drove the car. Mike came home late in the evening and was shocked to see that his daughter was still with the nanny, and his wife was not home. This had never happened before. The man began to call morgues and hospitals, worried, not understanding where the wife had disappeared. But when the next day he received a call from the police to identify her, he did not believe that Louise was dead. And what a horrible death. She'd been burned alive. There was an accident. She hit a jackknife. The car burnt to a crisp. All they could identify was her belt buckle and her purse, where they found her bank card, and they could read who it belonged to. Mike stared in horror at the charred body, or rather what was left of it, and cried. Only now, at this very moment, he realized that he really loved his wife. He just didn't want to admit it to himself. What happened? Why the car burned down? The investigators never found out. This terrible tragedy so shook the businessman that he even went down with hypertension. Mike desperately longed for Louise, for her gentle hands, kind eyes, soft smile. Now he berated himself day and night that he did not love, did not appreciate, did not realize how dear this woman was to him, and that he did not need anyone else. But life goes on. The daughter demanded attention, also all the time crying and calling for mom. So at the age of 30, Mike became a widower, and his daughter lost her mother. Now the upbringing of Wendy fell only on his shoulders. This process was not easy for him. After all, he burned day and night at work, came late, and Wendy all the time was under the care of a nanny. The girl lived in luxury. She had the best tutors. She attended all sorts of developmental circles, swimming pool. dressed her daughter's father with needle, and felt that this is enough. Not noticing that Wendy didn't need all this at all, that she was tired of such a life. And the more her daughter grew up, the more she became estranged from her father. He never hurt her, he only did what he thought was right. But she dreamed of becoming a chef. In the kitchen she had no equal. She loved to experiment and invent new dishes. But instead of realizing her dream, Mike insisted that she go to law school. They had their first big fight back then. Wendy screamed in his face, "Daddy, I can't take it anymore. Why are you like this? I'm not much of a lawyer. It's not enough to know the law, you have to be able to defend the interests of clients, and you know better than anyone else that it's not mine. I don't like publicity. I won't go to school there, and I'll run away from home. If my mom were alive, she'd support me." Mike locked his daughter in the room and shouted at the door, "You don't understand anything, silly. I only want what's best for you. I paid such a lot of money to get you there. This profession will feed you all your life, even if I'm gone. What's a cook? Carrying pots and plates. You'll calm down and listen to your father. And where will you run away to, you fool? You don't look for good from good. I do everything for you and you don't appreciate it. You're selfish." In the end, the daughter gave in and habitually obeyed her father's will, and almost graduated from university. But she wasn't happy about it. On the contrary, Wendy became secretive, did not tell her father anything, did not share anything. It was as if they were strangers to each other. And now she's made up this idea of marrying a simpleton. It's obviously to piss him off. You see, she didn't like Zach. He was a bad man. And this little guy was a prince on a white horse. He bought the ring at a pawn shop. It was Louise's engagement ring that he, Mike, had custom made for their wedding years ago. Who brought it to the pawn shop? How had strangers gotten it in the first place? Mike rubbed his temples and remembered, and indeed, when he'd been at the lineup, the ring hadn't been on his finger. But then everything was as in a terrible dream. Nobody remembered about it. The banker's heart was pounding like crazy. He really wanted to find out how the ring of his late wife was in the pawn shop. It was the only thread that could open the veil of the mystery of Louise's death. Mike rushed to the pawn shop. The conversation got ugly. The businessman began, "Hello, a guy bought this ring from you today. Tell me, how did you get it? The thing is, it's my ring. It's been missing for years. I really need to find the person who brought it to you. It's a matter of life and death." The appraiser was a bit coy at first and didn't want to say anything. "How can I remember everyone? I see thousands of people a day." Mike banged his fist on the table. "Don't lie. Any customer can redeem the jewelry within a certain period of time. That means you have contacts of visitors. Well, tell me who brought you this ring. I'm a banker myself, and I know how you do things. Otherwise, I might as well report you for money laundering." The appraiser immediately changed his tone and opened his record book. "Tax. The engagement ring was brought by Peter. Here, write down the phone number. He didn't buy it back, so I sold it. He's a young boy, about 16 at the most. Said he needed money real quick. I hope you're all done. Goodbye then." Mike didn't listen to the appraiser anymore. He began to frantically dial the number, and the guy did pick up. The man didn't know what to say. "Good afternoon. You don't know me. You recently turned in your wedding ring to the pawn shop. Tell me, whose is it? Where did you get that piece of jewelry? I really need to know." But the guy hung up right away. Got a short ringtone. Mike made many more calls after that, but no one answered the phone. This made the man even more angry. Why did the kid hang up at the mention of the ring? Maybe he stole it? Or maybe he had something to be afraid of. There was no stopping the banker now. He instructed his guards to find the location of a phone with that number. It turned out to be a village. And that's where Louise's burnt-out car was found years ago. Mike went there the next day, even though it was a long way off. Knowing the exact location of the phone, it was easy to find the house. It was large and well-maintained, with a beautiful flower bed under the window, and again the banker's heart throbbed. Louise loved petunias and always planted them in the courtyard of the mansion, and just like that, creating colorful patterns. Mike knocked on the window. But when Louise came out, alive, in a colorful apron and headscarf, he grabbed his heart and collapsed to the ground like a hamstring. The man was coming to his senses. A bearded man was shoving a cotton ball with ammonia under his nose. Louise was waving a towel and commanding, "Lizzie, my daughter, bring water. Peter, open the windows. Oh my God, she'll die yet." The the little girl asked in surprise. "Mommy, who is it? Your acquaintance? In our village does not live in our village." The woman just waved her hands. "Wait with the questions. Yes, it's for me. Come on, Mike, wake up. Will you say something?" The banker whispered. "Louise, pinch me. Are you alive? But how can you be? You were burned. I recognized your charred body. I go to your grave every year. I put candles for the repose of your soul. And you were alive all this time and you didn't come home? Why didn't you? Tell me? What about your daughter?" Wendy was grieving, missing her mommy so much. What the hell happened back then? What are you even doing in this village? Who are all these people? I don't understand anything. Is this a dream or a delusion? The woman sighed. "Thank God you've come to your senses." "No, Mike, it's not a dream or a delusion. I live here. And this is my family. My husband Dave, my daughter Lizzie, and my son Peter." Mike shouted, rolling his eyes wildly. "Who am I to you then? What about Wendy? Aren't she and I your family? I can't believe all of this." The woman sighed. "Let's go to my room. We have a lot to talk about in private. I'll tell you everything. Maybe you'll understand me." The owner of the house understood everything, turned pale and called the boys. "Lizzie, Peter, come with me to the yard. Let's water the beds. Mother needs to talk, didn't you hear? You don't want to hang your ears and eavesdrop on grown-up conversations." Mike couldn't believe it. He tried to take Louise's hand, to feel her warmth, to press himself against her. After all, he had dreamed of it all these years. But the woman gently pulled him away. Her eyes no longer looked at him as before, with love. And she began to tell him, "That day I was on my way to a work meeting. There were 2 young girls voting on the side of the road. One of them was holding her stomach, so I stopped to see if they needed any help. One of them begged, 'Hello, please give us a ride to the hospital,' gave me the address. It's on the way." I, of course, agreed, began to offer help. "What about the girl? I have a first aid kit. Maybe you need some medicine?" But a fellow traveler negatively shook her head. "No, her stomach seized. In the side prickles. Appendicitis, apparently. Please hurry up. We have to get to the doctor in time." I didn't even think anything bad. On the contrary, I wanted to help this poor girl. I thought I was doing a good deed. The road went through the forest, and as soon as we got farther away, one of the girls cried out, "Stop for a minute, I'm going to throw up." I, of course, braked sharply. At the same moment, the light went out and I was hit on the head from behind. I don't remember much of the rest of it. I didn't regain consciousness for long. I only managed to hide my wedding ring in my boot. It was very dear to me. You know how much I loved you. Then I vaguely remember how they tore off my jewelry, bracelet, earrings, expensive fur coat. Those vipers were measuring my own clothes, mocking me and laughing loudly. Then they kicked me again and threw me into a snow ditch. I don't remember how long I lay there. I probably would have died that way if the forester hadn't found me. It took me 3 days to come to my senses at his house. Dave nursed me like a little girl, fed me from a spoon, treated me with herbs, brought me a paramedic. I had a skull injury, memory loss, and pneumonia. I couldn't remember anything about myself, who I was and where I came from, a blank slate. My fellow villagers told me that they found a burnt car at the entrance to the town, and a burnt woman in it. But I didn't remember anything. I just stayed here. Peter, Dave's son, he loved me. Dave loved me. And I loved him. You don't know what kind of man he is. Honest, humble, decent. He took such good care of me. He cared for me so much. It wasn't until a year later that I slowly remembered everything. I realized that the burned woman in that car was probably one of the girls who attacked me. I don't know what they were fighting about or how they got into an accident with my car. But I knew you must think I was dead. I didn't know what to do at first. I thought long and hard, and I decided not to come back. Dave at the village hall gave me a new identity. I'm Pam now. And Louise is dead. She's gone. So forget me, Mike, and forgive me if you can. The man was shocked. He kept staring at the features of the face so dear to the pain, and could not believe that his Louise said such words. But why? Why did you cut me and my daughter out of your life? Answer me? I don't understand. Didn't you give a damn about Wendy all these years? Didn't your heart ache to know how she was? Louise lowered her eyes. She was ashamed. She said quietly, "Why are you so harsh, Mike? Of course I think of her often, she's my child. And I love her as much as I ever did. But remember how we lived with you? It was like cat and dog. We fought night and day. We didn't really love each other. What kind of family was that? It's different with Dave. You may not believe this, but in all these years, we've never had a fight. There's this inner harmony between us, you know? We understand each other half a word. I'm very happy here, really. The village is so quiet, so peaceful. There's no fuss, no nervousness. I keep the house, the farm, and I like it all very much. I won't go back, and don't even ask me. My family is here, period. I know I feel very guilty about my daughter, and this is a very hard decision for me to make. But I always knew how much you loved Wendy and could raise her and get her back on her feet. Mike asked, "Well, that's your decision. And the ring? How did the ring end up in a pawn shop in town? Why would your stepson take it there? You're not poor, are you?" Louise got very sad and started to tell me. "Dave and I had a daughter together, Lizzie. But it seems I'm really poor. She has a heart defect. She needs surgery. We've been waiting a year for our quota, and it's not moving. The time is getting shorter and shorter. The girl is already very weak. She can't go to school. Often faints, sleeps a lot. So I decided to sell the ring out of desperation. I asked Peter to take it to her. But they cheated him, clever dealers, gave him a penny. And it's an expensive ring. Me and Dave are saving every penny we can, and Peter's got a job on a farm to help his sister. But it's going to take us a long time to get it together anyway. More than anything else in the world, I'm afraid of not having time." Louise cried quietly, covering her face with her hands. Everything inside Mike's body clenched. The jealousy and resentment disappeared for a moment. He realized that in many ways Louise was right. He himself did not value their family, did not take care of it, so she did not want to return, and he wanted to help her, against all odds. Mike quietly replied, "How much is the operation costing Lizzie? Tell me, don't be shy. After all, I've been multiplying capital all my life, and for what? At least I'll do one good deed, help the child." Louise couldn't believe it. She cried again. "Mike, will you really help? Even though I didn't come back to you and loved someone else? Thank you so much. I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life. I was a worthless mother to Wendy. I know. I've thought about it a lot. I've berated myself for being so mean to my daughter. It's my sin and my cross to bear. I imagine how much she'll hate me when she finds out I'm alive and healthy and have another family. But I've imagined 100 times what it would be like if I went back. We can't live with you because I've been in love with Dave for a long time. You wouldn't let me take my daughter back to the village, and who'd be happy about that? Wendy would have to get used to her stepfather, to the country. She'd be torn between loving me and loving you. So I didn't dare rise from the dead. Forgive me if you can." Mike sat with his head down, as if he was saying goodbye to the woman he once loved, and replied, "I will not say anything to my daughter. I don't want her to be nervous and worried. Nothing cannot change. Everything has turned out as it happened, and I won't force you. I see you love your forester, so be happy. Let's be friends, and I'll help Lisi. You send me the details and the amount. I'll pay for everything. By the way, do you know what Wendy did? She hooked up with a working man, a pauper, and now he's coming to me to ask for her hand in marriage. And he's upset me with the news that he's got my daughter pregnant. I'm just furious. I'm going to come and give her a hard time. I found her a fiancé from our circle, and she turns her nose up at me. Ever since she was a little girl, she's been fighting me on everything. I barely got her into law school, but she keeps telling me she wants to be a chef. I don't know how to fight her." Louise stared at her ex-husband and suddenly blurted out, "You haven't changed, Mike. You're still trying to break the people closest to you. Maybe you don't need to fight with your daughter. Maybe you should listen to her. Aren't you afraid you're going to lose Wendy too? I've suffered so much too, because you never listened to me or heard me. Don't you realize that everyone is different? And they're entitled to their opinions, even if they don't agree with yours. According to you, I live with a beggar in the countryside, right? But I'm happy here, and I don't need recognition or millions. It's such happiness. You'll be a grandfather. You'll love the little one. Take care of her. Or are you ready to give up grandchildren? Just because you don't like your daughter's fiancé? Don't be so hot. Don't be so hard on yourself. Look at the guy. Maybe he's not a bad guy after all. Don't push your daughter away from you, be wise. Mike flared up. Who's telling me how to live my life? What a mother of the year. She lives here and doesn't give a damn about her own daughter. I raised Wendy alone, and I'm the only one who can decide what's best for her. Louise covered her face with her hands and cried quietly. You've got to go, Mike. Goodbye. I don't want anything from you. I will pray for you and your daughter that you make the right decision. Mike ran out of the house in a frenzy without even saying goodbye. He was choked with anger and resentment towards Louise. Everything was boiling inside him. He resented. Wow. She has settled down well, Queeness. She is going to advise me here. She is teaching me how to live. The other daughter is closer to her. And Wendy and me, we're not needed. We've been cut out of her life forever. I'll never set foot here again. And I was a fool to miss Louise all these years. Why did that fiancé bring that damned ring? Why did I look for her? I wish she had really died then. The shocking truth about Louise, the news that his daughter was pregnant. The banker went to a restaurant and drank cognac almost without appetizers, trying to drown out the anger and resentment inside him. It seemed to him that the closest people betrayed him. He put his whole soul into his daughter, everything for her. And she had dared to tangle with some lowly scoundrel. And Louise? How dare she betray her family? To fall in love with some forest ranger. She had everything. Her wounded ego and jealousy literally made it hard to breathe. Mike didn't remember how long he had been sitting like that. He was brought out of his stupor by the waiter's voice. Sorry, we're closing. Why don't you call a cab? You shouldn't be driving. Mike jumped up and down, and this guy was telling him what to do. The man yelled, Here's the money, choke on it and don't give me change, I'll take care of it without you. I'm all right, leave me alone. Mike did not call a cab, and did not drive, but walked for the first time in years. It was pouring outside, the wind was howling, and he waded through the mud, wrapped in the hem of his jacket, and cried bitterly, tearfully. He had never allowed himself such weakness in his life. But he could now. No one could see him. For the 100th time he remembered his and Louise's married life, as if turning over leaf after leaf in a calendar. He remembered how her eyes had burned, how tenderly she had embraced him, how carefully she had kept their family hearth, no matter what. But he, a foolish narcissist, did not notice any of this. He thought it was the way it should be, the way it should be. He lacked passion, fire, pepper. So he drove Louise on without realizing it, demanding things from her that weren't her own. And then I saw the image of Louise now. In front of him sat a really happy woman, eyes calm, warm, but no longer looking at him, as before, with love. Well, is it her fault that she was saved by that other? That she sincerely loved him, not remembering herself? And her daughter? How many times she tried to get through to him? Did her father hear her? I could scold Wendy. I could even kick her out or forbid them to see each other. So what? Louise is right, as much as I hate to admit it. I'm already estranged from my daughter, and if I push her away now, I'll lose her. It was like a huge transformation was taking place inside Mike. It was Louise who had stirred it all up. His ironclad principles that he had spent his whole life hammering into his head flew away. When Mike finally made it home, staggering, he looked like a huge, wet and dirty dog. Wendy was pacing nervously back and forth in the street, still fiddling with her cell phone and wrapped in her raincoat. When she finally saw her father, she ran to him. Daddy, Daddy, where have you been? I called all your friends and hospitals. I thought I'd go to the police. What's wrong with you? Are you drunk? You stink like a rum barrel. What's wrong? I was so worried. Let's go inside quickly. You need to warm up. You'll get sick. Her daughter fussed around him, giving him hot tea, steaming his feet and putting on woolen socks, wrapping him in a warm blanket, and looking at him frightened. Such a father Wendy had never seen. There was a kind of doom and longing in his eyes. Suddenly the man said quietly, Daughter, I know everything. Patrick came to the bank to ask you to marry him, and he brought a ring. He told me you were pregnant. Wendy turned pale and was even more frightened, imagining what was about to happen. She asked in a shaky voice, Is that why you got so drunk? You're against it, aren't you? I know I'm against it. And I love Patrick. But that's never been an argument for you. All you see is profit and money. Even if you kick me out of the house, I won't leave my fiancé. We'll live on our own as best we can. I don't need anyone else." The thought that Wendy might really leave and he'd be alone was unbearable. For the first time in his life, Mike hugged his daughter reverently and said sincerely, "I can't hide that I'm shocked, but I don't mind, and I will be very much looking forward to a grandchild. It's your choice, daughter. You live with Patrick. And as a father, I have to accept it. Bring the groom over to meet him, see if he's not so bad." Wendy couldn't believe it and kept asking, "Is that really okay with you, Dad? You won't change your mind tomorrow?" "Thank you. I'll invite Patrick over tomorrow. Just promise me you won't make fun of him. He's a humble, simple guy. Not like that pompous turkey Zach. Oh, Daddy, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I was so afraid to tell you. You've never understood me before, and I've given up trying to get through to you." Mike stroked Wendy's head as he had done when she was a child, and he said, "It's going to be different now, sweetheart. I promise. I'm going to go to bed. I'm so sleepy in the heat. My eyes are closing on their own. And I'll spit on work tomorrow, so I'll get a good night's sleep." The next morning, Mike woke up with a terrible headache. His body ached and his mouth was dry. He couldn't remember when he'd been so drunk. Probably only after his wife died. The man saw a glass of water and a fizzy pill for his head on the nightstand. His daughter got worried. The man took the medicine, writhing in pain, and went into the shower. Wendy was already waiting for him in the kitchen. She chirped, "Good morning, Daddy. How are you? Not good, huh? I made you some sour soup. Will you eat it? It's good for a hangover. You got any cranberry morsels?" Mike was so pleased that his daughter cared about him. She looked so happy. She was glowing. The man drank a couple of glasses of morsels in one gulp, and he quacked contentedly. He felt considerably better. Wendy looked into his eyes and asked anxiously, "Daddy, do you remember our conversation yesterday?" "So, should I?" "Patrick, when do you want to come over?" "And changed his mind?" Mike smiled and flicked his daughter lightly on the nose. "I remember everything. What are you? Tonight, invite me over, about 7 o'clock. Make me a strong cup of coffee, daughter. I have to go to a place to correct a mistake. It's very important." Wendy glowed and began to work her magic at the coffee machine. Her heart fluttered. Did Dad really agree? Just like that? It's unbelievable. In fact, he doesn't look like himself. He's so quiet, so calm. I wonder what happened to him yesterday. The man drank his coffee, got ready, and went to the bank. He withdrew a large sum from his account and went again to the village. This time the door was opened by the same bearded man, Dave. He was clearly not happy about the visitor and began to say, "Why have you come again?" Louise had been crying all night. Her sugar was up. Her blood pressure was up. They had to bring in a paramedic. They gave her an IV. She apologized to you yesterday. Stop torturing her. Do you know how hard it was for her to make that decision? To give up her own daughter or to live with someone she didn't love? It wasn't until after Lizzie was born that Louise was a little better. Her eyes brightened. But then that bloody disease crept in. Maybe it's a curse on us for everything, I don't know. Think what you want. It's your right. But please don't kill her. I love Louise very much with all my heart. I cherish my family and I won't let anyone destroy it. Go away, please." Mike understood. He'd been emotional last night. He'd said too much. The banker took a wad of money out of his briefcase, handed it to Dave and said, "This is for Lisa, from the bottom of my heart. Take it. You don't have to give it back. Also, tell Louise I forgive her and I'm not angry anymore. Take my card. If you need help, call me. I'm always here for you." Dave, of course, did not want to accept help from the ex-husband of his wife, but the situation was desperate. It saved the life of his daughter. So he took the money and shook Mike's hand sincerely. "Thank you, Mike. I am now your eternal debtor." Mike. Mike left with a light heart. It turned out to be so pleasant to do good deeds. He was relieved. He wanted Lizzie to get better and Louise to calm down. He himself always chafed at Wendy when she was sick, and he knew how hard it was for Louise. Wendy fussed all day. She cooked lasagna, baked a cake, Daddy's favorite with sour cream and juicy cherries. Patrick arrived at 7 sharp. He, too, was very excited, bought a delicate bouquet of chrysanthemums for his beloved, and a bottle of champagne, so to speak, for introductions. He even borrowed a suit from his neighbor, Uncle Kolya, for the occasion. The whole dormitory was holding their fists up for him. Patrick was so afraid that he wouldn't be able to make small talk, that his father-in-law would mock him. He didn't believe that Mike had given up so easily, and he kept waiting for some kind of trick. But to his surprise, the owner was dressed simply and domestically, greeted him politely, shook his hand, and invited him to the table. Wendy started fussing, laying out lasagna and other goodies. Patrick opened the champagne, and the host made a toast. "Well, Patrick, let's get acquainted. Our first meeting with you wasn't very pleasant. Don't worry, the ring is right here. I've thought about it and decided I'm not against your love, and I'd love to have a grandchild. You live happily ever after, and I'll help you. Tell me about yourself, Patrick. What do you do?" Here the guy was really scared and decided that after the banker found out that he had no documents, he would immediately change his mind and throw him out. And yet Patrick did not hide anything. He did not want to start the acquaintance with a lie. He told everything honestly, stammering and blushing. Wendy, too, fidgeted in her chair. She even felt sick. They were both waiting for her father to explode again. But no, some magic happened again, and Mike said sternly, "That's no good, Patrick. The first thing we have to do is get the documents back in order. We'll go tomorrow, and I'll help you. It'll take you a long time to get through the paperwork yourself. I've got the right connections. We'll get you a good job, no problem. Where do you plan to live? You can stay here if you want. I'd be happy to." Patrick plucked up courage and answered, "If you help me with the documents, I'll be very grateful. I know it's my fault. I delayed it. But we will live separately. I understand. I have a small room, a dormitory. It'll be hard on Wendy at first, but I still want to do something for myself. I'm so motivated now. I promise I'll love and take care of my family. You won't regret having me in the family." Everyone enjoyed the lasagna, then drank tea and cake praising the hostess. Mike could hardly breathe. He was so full he said, "Phew, I'm full, I think. Still, you cook, you daughter, amazing. You're a good girl." Wendy glowed. Her dad had never praised her like that before, and it was so necessary and important for her. She said, "Daddy, I want to be a chef so badly. It's been a dream of mine since childhood. Of course I will finish law school, a year only left. The exams will only have to pass when I'm pregnant. But then when the baby grows up, I'm going to study to be a pastry chef. Do you mind?" Mike laughed. "Now I don't mind. You do what you think is right. I won't push you anymore. It's no use. Everybody's got their own way. It's a pity I realized it too late." "It's not too late, Daddy. I'm so glad you heard me. I won't have to hide my dreams and plans anymore. I just wish Mom was here. She'd be so happy for me." Mike could barely contain himself, but he pulled himself together and said, "Yes. That's too bad. But you know, she always loved you and loves you, I'm sure. Well, young people, let's play checkers. Patrick, can you play checkers? It's been a long time since I've had such a hearty family vacation." The evening was warm and easy, and since that day the lives of all the heroes have changed a lot. Mike, as promised, helped Patrick with documents. The guy officially got a job. Now he went out to repair apartments. He started to earn good money. Life in the dormitory didn't seem like hell to Wendy at all. She made friends with the neighbors, cooked together in the common kitchen, cheerfully with jokes, treating each other, and in general helped in everything. Zach, Wendy's ex-boyfriend, of course, heard rumors that she had gotten involved with some beggar, and the banker was helping them. The guy was choked with anger, because he was counting on a favorable marriage. Then his parents would be related to the banker, and his father would be able to launder black money through the bank. So Zach decided to get revenge on the crook, get his ass kicked in the ass. Patrick was on his way home from work late at night and decided to take a shortcut through the yards. That's where Zach and his buddies caught up with him. At first, the major threatened the guy. "Listen up, loser. Get out of my sight. Wendy was my fiancée before you showed up. You ruined my plans, and now you're gonna pay for it." Patrick knew there was no way to avoid a fight. These bastards were clearly not in the mood to talk, so he put the grocery bag on the ground and stood up. "Come on, just one-on-one. Fair and square." But Zach immediately blew a whistle to his buddies, and Patrick was attacked by 3 men. The guy fought back for a long time, but one of the attackers pulled out a knife, and Patrick's eyes darkened with pain, and under his shirt began to blur a scarlet stain. He hadn't made it home 100 meters away. Good thing that the neighbor, an elderly old lady, was just walking her dog and noticed the wounded guy. She recognized Patrick and rushed to his room, to Wendy's room, calling for an ambulance and the police on the way. Grandma pounded on the door and wailed, "Wendy, open up! It's bad! Patrick's been murdered!" Oh, what grief! He's lying there by the third house covered in blood. Oh my goodness, what's happening? Wendy rushed there as she was, in her robe and slippers, screaming and calling for help, holding Patrick's head in her hands and howling, "Love, Patrick, don't die! Who did this to you? Why? Live, breathe, please!" An ambulance arrived and the boy was rushed to the emergency room. Wendy went with them. She held her fiancé's hand and prayed for one thing, that he would survive. On the way, she called her father. "Daddy, we're in trouble. Patrick's been attacked. He's wounded. I'm going with him to the hospital. Please come, I'm so scared. If he dies, I'll die too." Mike immediately jumped out of bed and shouted, "Daughter, calm down, I'm coming. Everything's gonna be okay. Don't panic." The operation lasted 4 hours, then the doctor came out and said, "It's very badly wounded, the spleen's been hit. We did everything we could. We've put the guy in a coma for now, otherwise he won't survive. We have to believe and pray, but the chances, frankly, are very slim." Wendy cried out and began to lose consciousness. The medics came running to her and Mike wailed, "Help her, she's pregnant, she can't be nervous. Do something." Wendy almost had a miscarriage because of the stress and had to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks. Thank God the baby was saved. But Patrick never recovered. As soon as Wendy was allowed to get up, she immediately came to his room, whispered to him for a long time, kissed him, stroked his hands. "Patrick, you must wake up, please. I have never loved anyone as I love you. We're having a baby. He's waiting for you here too. As soon as you're well enough, we'll get married for sure. Come on, sweetheart, open your eyes. Look at me." She whispered it like a mantra, and to the surprise of the doctors, 24 hours later Patrick woke up, slowly recovered. The crisis passed. The guy told them who attacked him. Mike was furious because Zach was the prosecutor's son, which means it's already gotten to the point of a stabbing. The guy's got no fear of anything or anyone. This can't just go on like this. The banker got the TV and the press involved and gave the case unprecedented publicity. The scoundrels were quickly found. They didn't hide much, believing in their impunity. Of course, Daddy Prosecutor tried to get his son off, but he failed. Zach and his buddies went to the penal colony, and his daddy lost his epaulets and his heated place in the organs. Now Patrick and Wendy were even more reverent toward each other, valuing every minute they spent together. Pregnancy was not easy, but everything ended well. Exactly on time, a wonderful baby boy, Alex, was born. Wendy was afraid that the dormitory would have a hard time with the baby, especially since Patrick was now often on the road, but she was wrong. On the contrary, the neighbors helped. They all babysat the baby. They gave her the ropes on the balcony to dry the onesies and onesies. The couple signed modestly, without pomp. They didn't live richly, but they lived amicably. This quiet family happiness was more important to Wendy than any status and money. She did not regret that she had tied her life with Patrick, because they sincerely loved each other. But how much fun all the holidays were. In the common kitchen, at a set table, neighbors were already like family. Patrick slowly saved for the first installment, dreamed of buying his own apartment in the mortgage. But to be honest, it was a pity to part with friendly neighbors. Mike took Alex to his place on weekends, was happy to play with him. It turns out that love for his grandson, it is something very special, tender, and reverent. He pressed to him little Alex. He smiled at him and blew his cheeks, and inside everything tickled with emotion. Lizzie was successfully operated on. The girl was gradually recovering. Louise did not leave her daughter for a minute and called Mike directly from the room. She sobbed and whispered, "Thank you, Mike. My daughter has survived. She is recovering. You are a golden man and a real man. I'm so grateful to you. How's Wendy? Did she give birth yet?" The man replied, "Yes. You're a grandmother. Congratulations. You have a grandchild, Alex. He's so funny. He's so funny. I'll send you a photo and a video of us picking up my daughter and Patrick from the hospital. Thank you, Louise. Meeting you has had a profound effect on me. I've rethought my life and realized a lot of things. You're right, as soon as I stopped pushing my daughter, she reached out to me. We're best friends now. We call every day. She and Patrick come to visit me on weekends. He's a good guy. All he cares about is his family. He does his best. I really respect him. I used to think he was a pauper. But now I realize he had no one to help him, no one to lend a hand. He's doing fine on his own. Louise said, "You know what? You come and visit me and Dave whenever you want. Can we be friends? We've sorted it all out. No more hard feelings. I'd like to bring my grandchild. I'd like to get a glimpse of him. You know, Mike, I'd like to hold Wendy, hug her, apologize to her. But I don't know how she's going to take it. What do you think? Should we?" Mike said, "Let Alex grow up a little bit, maybe then. I'm so scared she'll lose her milk from the stress. I don't know what to tell you, Louise, but I don't think we should go through all this again. Wendy's a mommy herself. She's shaking her son like a little bird. She's happy, she's loved, so let's not change anything."